Come with me on an idle ride as we watch The Last of Us together.
Can't be any worse out there. Can it?
I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
Ellie! Stop! Stop!
Fucking touch me!
It's okay. It's me. It's me. It's me. Look. Sweet Jesus.
Doctor?
What are you doing in here? This is our future. Think of all the lives we'll save.
I struggled for a long time with surviving. And no matter what, you keep finding something to fight for.
Welcome to Idle Ride, a podcast dedicated to casual enthusiasm for all things pop culture. I'm Marcy, your host, here with my chosen brother, Paul.
I'm the chosen brother, Paul.
To discuss the third episode of The Last of Us TV series titled Long, Long Time. Once again, our live reactions to the show will be available as bonus episodes if you would like to watch along, but I'll be including some of the best of our reactions in this episode. Tonight we have a special guest joining us for the episode, our mostly invisible producer, John Bolds. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us your relationship with The Last of Us?
How's it going? I am aspiring podcast producer, apparently, and good old friend of Paul and Marcy. We've known each other, again, a long, long time. And Last of Us, I have played the first game. I have not played the second game yet. And that's about as far as my involvement with it goes.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly where Paul and I are, so
Yeah.
you're in good company.
Excellent.
Bonus points for using the title in your intro.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm going to start it off by just starting at the beginning of the episode. Previously on episode 2, Tess was killed by a bunch of zombies, and Joel and Ellie were kind of running off into the wilderness. We see Joel sort of being morose and creating these cairns, I think kind of in remembrance of Tess, but I was immediately like, no. Bad. This is bad. You don't create cairns randomly in the forest because you're going to lead hikers astray. But Paul didn't really know that that was a thing, so...
I didn't. I mean, I've gone hiking and I've seen them around and it's just like, oh, people are stacking rocks. Good for them.
Yeah. And what happens when you stack rocks and cairns like that? You get something called 10 miles west of Boston that is nowhere remotely close to 10 miles west of Boston.
Yeah. Like somebody's like, oh, this is where I should go, but instead it's just a monument to Tess, so they wander off into the woods and die.
Yeah.
Which is what Tess would have wanted.
Yeah, that's true. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then I was immediately keyed on the fact that when Ellie wakes up, she asks Joel if she can give his jacket back, and I'm like, oh, like Joel is already, even when he's annoyed at her for the fact that Tess is dead, he had put his jacket over her at night to keep her warm. So it's already starting here in this scene with him taking care of Ellie.
And the jacket over the sleeping companion on any kind of trip is definitely a trope that shows up, but it's always a sweet one. It's always the other person wakes up and realizes there's a jacket, like, aw, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically showing that he cares enough to be uncomfortable and allow her to be comfortable at night.
Yeah.
Well, she can't freeze to death at night. Otherwise, he'd fail the mission. So
Right.
Escort mission done. Have to restart at the last load save.
and then go through all of Tess's death again.
Oh, no. Gotta rewatch all that
quick
again.
Save, for the love of God. Quick save after.
F5. I feel like there's this amazing scene where something happens that you don't really expect, where Joel says, you don't have to apologize. And Ellie's like, fuck no, I'm not apologizing. So I have that clip to play for everybody.
Look, I've been thinking
I
about...
don't want your sorries.
I wasn't going to say I'm sorry. I was going to say that I've been thinking about what happened. Nobody made you or Tess take me. Nobody made you go along with this plan. You needed a truck battery or whatever, and you made a choice. So don't blame me for something that isn't my fault.
I think that's such like a perfect line. It illustrates Ellie's character in a way that's really great. Just because you're an adult doesn't mean you get to be an asshole. And that's just kind of how she feels about everyone. She doesn't just respect you because you're older than her. You have to earn her respect.
Yeah, and it's hard to play an audio clip of it, but I love Joel's reaction to it, where he takes it in and then realizes she's correct and just nods.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's such a good reaction. Because often I think people go the opposite way, which is, I'm just going to continue to be bitter. But I think immediately after that scene where she says, you can't blame me for this, he decides that she's right and then just moves on from there and isn't blaming her for it and treats her like he normally treats people. So yeah. I think that was a really good scene to show Joel's overall character and the fact that he needs somebody to lead him, even though it's like a little kid. Like, he needs a moral compass, and Ellie is going to be his moral compass now that Tess is gone, you know? Paul, you will probably talk about this later too, is that protector versus protectee relationship. And I think the protectee becomes the moral compass, and then the protector has to keep them kind of safe within their moral confines.
Yeah.
They're continuing along with that amazing color palette of those really like bright, springy greens juxtaposed against that man-made concrete or broken down houses. And I feel like it's so reminiscent of the game. Like, anytime I look in the background, I just feel like I'm there playing the game again.
The broken down human made environment kind of, it's reminiscent of Ozymandias, the poem about how, like, behold my works and weep, and like there's nothing left because nature has reclaimed it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's nice that there are bright colors in a post-apocalyptic show, which we haven't gotten to see a lot of. Everything's always muted grade, washed out, dusty, and just gritty. It's like, yeah, no, hey, nature takes over quickly and it stays bright.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I love that the vibrancy is the natural world and that the man-made world is the dark, dingy, gross world. Yeah. Which is kind of true. Like, even though there's bad things that happen in nature, I think humans just take it to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to like back you off a little bit, because I don't believe people can control other creatures as meat puppets the way cordyceps does.
Oh, that's true. Good point. I guess we don't have like a meat puppet fungus, or we're not telepaths that can control other people, or we're not waterbenders that have bloodbending powers. But damn, I wish I did have bloodbending powers. That's like the coolest power in Avatar: The Last Airbender. So Ellie and Joel go on their little walk. They're walking down the road. They're looking for Bill and Frank's place. Again, we see some of that classic Joel and Ellie banter where she's giving him shit about like getting shot in the head and not able to protect himself. I don't know. I just love these scenes where there's wandering along, talking to each other, and she's just kind of giving him shit, and he's doing the classic Joel thing of just being like taking it, trying to ignore her, but just it's impossible.
Yeah.
She is the water wearing his rock down.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, so the bit where she asked about his scar and he said that he was shot at and it like grazed him, that gets into the whole being bad at guns discussion. It was really good foreshadowing for one. Like, I'm not going to talk too much about it because it's not this episode, but yes, guns and hearing damage is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I kind of just thought it was a good opportunity to go into the actual differences between being in a video game where you're tireless, you can like jump through a window and immediately your targeting reticule is on the guy and you pull the trigger and he's dead. In real life, you know, it's stressful, you're tired.
Well, and you were in riflery, so you had the stress of a competition where you had to shoot. So you kind of understand what it is to be stressed while you're trying to shoot.
Yeah, any distraction could mess up your aim. The gun doesn't have zero weight, whereas if you're moving a mouse, it's like you can do it all day.
You can't carry like a whole backpack full of power armor on your back, you mean? Like when you're walking down the street?
I didn't get that feat.
When he's talking about that, I was like, oh, I guess Joel's was me, basically. Dick shot Marcy. And then we get Ellie's first mention of this episode of wanting a gun, which is going to be a theme throughout this entire episode. She like looks at us, goes like, so you know, like I could maybe use that gun. He's like, hard no. No way.
Not even considering the possibility that someone else might be useful.
No.
What would you do, like, if a kid that was, what,
I think she said 14.
14? Old enough to maybe learn how to use a gun? I think he's still thinking of her as this kind of innocent character. I don't know. I think that would be the first thing I would do, is start at least helping her to learn how to use some of these things in case he did die.
13 is, in some circles, it's like, yeah, a kid can start learning to shoot 6, 7, 8 years old, no problem. You know, little 22, something like that. But also with the school she went to, obviously she has handled a gun before.
Mm-hmm.
Not well, but it's not like she's never touched one.
Right. He's just being a protective dad. Although, if Sarah had a gun, maybe she wouldn't have been gunned down.
Oh, well, that's a different time, though. That was 2003,
That was.
Paul.
He's probably worried more about her hurting herself and just being like, well, okay, there goes the one immune person.
That's true. She's important cargo.
Yeah, exactly.
So then we find ourselves at, and Marcy remembered the name Cumberland Farms. I just remembered it as the place where they went to pick up his stash. Joel was looking for some stuff that he had stashed away in this broken down gas station, was it?
Yeah.
It's basically scene for scene from the game. There's a arcade video game, like a fighter. In this one, it was Mortal Kombat. In the other, it was like a made-up game. She just walks up to it and talks about basically her girlfriend doing this really romantic scene where she narrated a fight scene and taught Ellie, how to push the buttons and to do the fighting technique. And it's just a throwaway line where she says, like, yeah, this person knew someone's killer technique. It's so subtle.
I love that they're bringing in those moments from the game, and I rewatched the clip from the game, and it was fun to see that scene where her girlfriend is telling her to close her eyes and describing it, because you realize Ellie's never going to be able to actually play the game, so you have to use your imagination. And it was a very good scene because you can see it in your own mind as well. So again, a fun cutscene with Joel and Ellie where you learn a little bit about them while you're on the road.
And along with that, do you guys buy that he wouldn't remember where they stashed the stuff?
He had an explanation.
Sort of. He's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And I think he said it's been 3 years, right, since he was there?
Yeah. How many stashes do they have, though? I found his looking around went a little long, but obviously it was necessary for the rest of the scene. Man, I feel like I'd remember. It's just a gas station. Come on, Joel.
I mean, my guess is that they probably do have a lot of stashes everywhere, and that he's an alcoholic who drinks himself to sleep every night with pills and whiskey, and trying to remember where he put the stash, the 80,000th stash he has of guns and ammo somewhere, might be kind of hard for Joel. He's also like in his 50s.
He's been doing this forever.
Like, I have a hard time remembering where my keys are, and I'm like not even that old. So yeah, it was kind of silly, but I liked that little back and forth between him and Ellie because of it. She's like, you don't even remember where it is, do you? And he's like, I do. It's in here somewhere.
Yeah, he's starting to open up to her. He even teases her a little bit.
Being her straight man.
And you need that for comedy. Then we get to Ellie snooping around, trying to cause some trouble. She finds just a panel on the floor, as you do, and opens it up and doesn't talk about it, which had my trope senses tingling.
Yeah, I was immediately like, Paul, it's happening. Something's bad gonna happen.
She's gonna die.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she like just drops down in the darkness, and at least she's smart enough to set up the trash can to escape better if she needs to.
Well, first of all, the fact that she's jumping down into a basement that doesn't have stairs. Now, I think about myself. I'm not that fit anymore. Pandemic. There is no way that I could do a pull-up out of that place. And so the moment she drops down, I'm like, how's she going to get out of there? So she does set up the trash can. But even still, it wasn't that high that she wouldn't have to do a full-on pull-up to get out. So she's fit. We've already learned that she's told Joel that she can walk for 5 hours straight, which she did. And now she can do like a straight up pull up from. So you know that she's been scavenging, whether it's in the city where she's from, the QZ. We know that she's done one trip at least outside of the city before Joel. Anyway, I like that they've kind of established that she's not a wilting flower or anything. Yeah. She's making plans for escape immediately when she jumps down into a place that's kind of scary. And she is used to being by herself. I mean, she doesn't quite trust Joel yet. He's established that he doesn't care about her. She's just cargo. He's told her that multiple times. So why would she tell him, oh yeah, I'm going down in this scary pit? Like, she wants to find shit and he wouldn't let her do it. So she's just going to do it without his permission.
Yeah.
Better to ask forgiveness.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, what you just said, Marcy, I have to ask you both. What do you think the Fedra curriculum consists of? Because I think gym classes would be very important.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I think they're basically teaching them their version of history, whatever that is.
Indoctrination, for sure. Yeah.
Which means, like, Fedra saved everybody, basically, from annihilation. It's probably also an orphanage. And so they're creating their own little army of indoctrinated, brainwashed kids to toe the Fedra line.
Yeah. Some asshole Fedra agent higher up thinks that they're running like a Black Widow type school, and it's just a terrible summer camp, basically. Like, oh no, this is important. It's like, nah, you guys are doing a pretty bad job.
Yeah, and I think Paul and I established in episode 1 that they did a good job of not really making either one seem good, like Fireflies versus Fedra. I think they both have their downfalls and their benefits. I mean,
they both start with
not
F.
later in the season, as we... yeah, right. But what I really love about this scene is they establish something that is sort of never really addressed in any other post-apocalyptic show I've ever seen, that she finds a package of tampons and is like extremely excited. And I'm like, fuck yeah, you would be excited about a package of tampons. I think about this a lot. Like, how would I handle my period in the apocalypse? I've tried to do Diva cups for a while, ladies. And that shit's messy and gross, and you get blood all over your hands, and sort of like a diaphragm, and then it catches all the blood, and then you take it out and you're supposed to like dump it in the toilet. But like, then your hands got blood all over it. Anyway, so then I went to, yes, we're talking about this.
Of course
Deal
we
with
are.
it, boys.
No, I was just thinking the blood
Paul,
should be used as fertilizer, obviously.
I should eat it, get it back in my system. No, just kidding. Ew, that's a little too far for me, like when pregnant women eat their placentas. But anyway, so finally I've gone to the period underwear, which is actually amazing because I remember being a little girl. Those huge, enormous pads are like wearing a diaper and you're in school and you're like in 6th grade and you swear that everybody can hear you going like... with your like giant pad. But maybe some ladies will have an easier time than me in the apocalypse. I'll just be bringing zombies to me, so I'll have to have a really good crew with me, like Paul and John, to beat off the zombies when I'm menseeing.
Yeah. And like I grew up with 5 sisters, and I think I can speak basically like on behalf of all men. Just hold it.
Just hold it.
Why can't you just hold it, right?
It's just like peeing, right?
Yeah.
Well, not to appropriate like native culture, but one of the things that I remember learning about a long time ago was that there was like menses lodges where women who were on their period would just like go in and sit on like a moss covered floor in a hut and hang out until their menses were done. And I'm like, that sounds fucking amazing. Like, can't I just go lounge around? Like, let's moss soak up my menses while I'm chilling, eating, talking to my girlfriends who are on the same cycle as me, because inevitably that is what happens, even though it's technically a myth. But still, I feel like every time I live with a woman, we end up on the same cycle.
Have you two read The Red Tent?
I've heard of it. I have not read it.
So it's like a Old Testament adjacent story about Dinah, and the women who go to the Red Tent when it's their period, they treat it publicly around the men as if it's like gross and shameful, but it really is just a party hut for them too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the only time they probably have to like not take care of everybody around them.
Probably relaxing and, oh hey, this is, yeah, I feel like crap. I feel like crap too. Okay, let's feel like crap together and have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So great. So naturally, all of this is going through Ellie's mind when she picks up the tampons. And that's why she didn't notice until afterwards that there was a zombie under some rubble in the room. So, of course, as the curious do, she approaches it cautiously with her knife out.
Her switchblade.
And she, I think, learns some stuff about the zombie. It doesn't seem obviously scared of her knife. She definitely has a serial killer look on her face that I'm not appreciative of. She opens it up and sees a little mycelium crawling underneath the skin and then gives him a mercy kill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a little clip from our original reactions to that scene.
Mycelium eye. All I can think about is when you were telling me about the real cordyceps virus, where that guy's brain is still conscious.
Yeah, that would be pretty awful.
Ew. There it is, the mycelium.
Right under the skin.
Whoa. Savage, what did I tell ya?
The look on her face, that wasn't really a mercy kill, was it?
That was a rage
Yeah.
kill. You killed my girlfriend!
It really was a rage kill. Like, you see on her face, there's no fear, all rage.
And I appreciated that on the zombie's face, they shot it and directed, and he was acted well enough that it's like, is there some consciousness there or is there not? Like, you could watch that scene as like, oh no, he's mindless, and there's a little bit of a glimmer of please do it, like a tiny little subtle nod from the zombie. Like, oh, they played that very well as to this could be interpreted however you want it to be.
And I didn't remember this at all, but there's some footage in the first game where you're being chased by a zombie and the guy is saying, I don't want to eat you, while chasing you and trying to eat you. So they're in there.
A somewhat unique thing to the zombies in Last of Us 2, that it's not just all pure rage, it's literally something else controlling their body, and they still have some consciousness left behind.
They're kind of the inverse of a zombie.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, she finishes her, like, there's nothing left to do down there in the basement, so implicitly she climbs out. I don't remember if we saw her climb out, but
yeah, you don't see her actually climb out.
Joel calls for her and seems a little concerned.
I think they do an amazing job. Pedro Pascal does an amazing job of, like, getting that emotion in his voice. You can already feel that he's nervous when he can't see her. And when he realizes she's been gone for a while, he's like, Ellie? And like, I mean, obviously I'm overdoing it, but he gets his gun out immediately. He's like, okay, gotta go find her. And then she arrives, so you can hear the fear in his voice that maybe something has already happened to her. So you can tell, despite what he says, he feels the opposite already. Like, you're cargo. I don't want to talk about my past. Hey, tell me about your past. So then we're continuing on our way down the road to Bill and Frank's, and we get a scene where Ellie sees an airplane and is in awe of the airplane. And I just love these scenes where she's never experienced life before the apocalypse. So when she has these moments of wonder, I think you could get to experience it with her in a way.
That's the whole joy of introducing someone to something new.
Yeah, exactly. I like the conversation and the way it brings into reality as like these amazing, awe-inspiring things we do every day. That's like, ugh, I have to sit in the middle seat while I fly through the air at hundreds of miles an hour and travel around the world faster than anybody ever has before. And yeah.
What generation are we from? We're like Xennial Millennials or something, but we're from the 1980s, and we saw the development of the computer basically as the personal computer, the cell phone. And I kind of still occasionally have that sense of wonder when I take out my cell phone, my iPhone, and it basically has the processing power, more processing power than my PC that I had that I was playing like DOS video games on, like, you got Ethernet and woo, that was like so fast, like remembering those times of
when we hiked across campus in the middle of winter carrying our computers for a LAN party.
Exactly. Yeah. So
that sense of wonder is important to cultivate, and sometimes I even do it like I will look at the moon and realize that I'm living in a sci-fi world.
Yeah, like if an alien came here, they'd probably look at our moon and be like, there's only one moon, like on other sci-fi shows where somebody gets dropped off at a planet and you see that there's like multiple planets, like Pitch Black or something. and it's awe-inspiring, and genetics and all the things that come along with it that create even our little chromosomes. How much fucking DNA is in our one little chromosomes, like that make us who we are. That's wonderous.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when she thinks that the monkey started.
Brilliant.
That was a good transition, right,
transition.
Yeah.
And if she thinks that the monkey did it, that clearly means she either missed that day in Fedra school or they're not teaching what happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
I would
clearly.
think they're not teaching what happened. Yeah. I would. That's
Well, I mean,
I'm never going to trust the Federalists. So yeah.
She has the very pointed barb. We'll get back to the discussion in a second, but at the end she said like a shitty government that failed to prevent a pandemic. That's Fedra and our government.
Yeah, absolutely. And she literally thanks Joel for actually telling her the truth. So obviously she hasn't been told anything. I guess I can not tell the story about Andrew, but it is funny. We can move on.
Gonna cut that, huh?
Well, you want me to tell it? Okay.
Yeah.
So when she's talking about, like, anytime anybody mentions monkeys, I blame Andrew, my partner, because I'll be laying in the bed and he'll be like, hey, Marcy, watch this video on Instagram. And I'm like, okay. And I turn and look, and it's always a monkey. And the monkey's always like got their finger up their butt. Like the first one is like a monkey on a tree branch, and it brings its fingers up to its nose and smells its poop fingers and falls off a tree.
Classic.
Classic. And then the most recent one was like a gorilla. He's like, hey, Mercy, watch this. And I'm like, what? And he's like, it's gonna eat its poop. And it like had just taken a big shit in its hand. And I was like, I'm not watching this. I'm gonna vomit. Like, I was immediately vomiting before I even saw it get to its mouth. So anytime I've just been tainted, because anytime I hear monkey, then I think of all these ridiculous monkey videos that Andrew shows me.
But it wasn't monkeys.
It was not monkeys.
It wasn't monkeys.
It was cars.
Everybody go Atkins, or you're going to be a zombie.
Gluten-free fungus.
Yeah, so this is a good example of the hints that they give in the early episodes actually pay off. Unlike Lost. I hate you, Lost. You're a stupid show.
It's true. Those fuckers. We watched all 7 seasons together, Paul. All 7 seasons. To end on, like, fucking purgatory. Fuck you, Lost. Fuck you 1,000 times. Anyway, yes, it does pay off, and that's good. And you were the one, not me.
Okay.
Well, I was complaining about the biscuits killing the woman because she's aspirating on the biscuits because she literally wasn't masticating when he was shoving them down her throat. But then you said, I guess it's technically not you. You had read some theory online that was the bread factory. And I was like, oh, interesting. But then it comes back here in this episode. So we clued in on it.
I do specifically remember you, like, they were saying we're out of pancakes or something, and you're like, I bet it's the pancakes, but like it was a throwaway line. So.
Oh. Hey, guys, I'm smarter than I thought. I love it when Paul makes me sound smart. It's like the best thing ever. I'll be like rambling, like you've heard on this podcast. And then Paul will say something and attribute it to me. I'm like, that's right. I am that smart.
Yeah. Then we find the mass grave.
I don't think Joel is great at communicating emotions, but when she said, can it hurt me? And he says no. It's like, Joel, you could say yes. Like, emotional damage is a thing.
Yeah.
But it is pretty dark stuff, that, like, whole scene where they come on the mass grave. He's talking about Fedra basically killing a bunch of civilians. You see, like, the skeleton of a mother with her baby. And it's pretty fucking dark.
Yeah.
And they end the Joel and Ellie scene there at the mass grave.
With a beautiful transition to the people who are about to die.
Yes!
Yeah. Very effective.
Yeah, a transition to the woman with the baby, because you can recognize her. There was clothes on the skeleton. It was the same clothes that's on the woman with the baby.
Which I will completely forgive the clothing lasting that long, 20 years out in the wilderness. It's like, nope, that was a great storytelling device.
No way I'm going to complain about that.
Yeah.
And so the transition is 20 years in the past. So we're back in 2003. The people get put on the cars to get kicked out of the town. There's some Fedra people going house to house and marking every house that they find. They don't find anyone in.
Yeah.
And then it shows the one house with all the cameras, and we got a guy in the basement.
And oh my God, it's Nick Offerman!
Nick Offerman. Nick Offerman spying on the military, abducting all of his neighbors, and he doesn't seem to care.
Is it Nick Offerman? Is it Ron Swanson? We don't know who this guy is, but we fucking love him.
Hell yeah, we do.
And his first line is freaking amazing, so I'm going to share that with everyone.
Not today, you New World Order jackboot fucks.
So well delivered.
Honestly.
Amazingly well. Like, because it's quiet, because he's still trying not to be noticed, but I love his, like, New World Order jackboot fucks. It's such, like, a funny line, and it's, like, perfect for Nick Offerman. He's just like an amazing actor. I love everything about him. I love everything about him in this episode. I just can't get enough of it.
So there he is in the basement of his house, Fortress of Solitude. And this is the best day of this guy's life. The military gets rid of all of his neighbors that we're pretty sure he hates. He's now got a whole town to himself. And he busts out. He steals a neighbor's boat to use as a trailer. He goes to that Home Depot and takes everything that he can. The power cuts out, so he's like, fuck it, I am the power company. Takes over that. Yep. Which
I will say, kudos. He turned the valve the right direction. He opened the valve when he went to the gas. I was like, hey, look, you're not closing it. You're opening it. Good man.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I think really effectively later on, I'm like, hey, you prepped, but you're not long-term prepped.
Right.
So
yeah.
It was just a very, very well done establishment of who this person is that we're going to be watching for the next hour.
I was thinking it'd be funny if when he went to loot Home Depot that wasn't a place that the government had gotten to yet. And so there's just a bunch of people shopping.
Do you really think they could take every single person out of the town? Like, I don't think there would be just him left, but I don't
think there would be either. And it's really the only nitpick I've had in 5 episodes so far. When they pull out and you see the big Fedra sign there hanging in town. The sign looks like it's 2 or 3 years old. It would have been put up within the last 3 days.
Interesting point.
This is week 1 of the outbreak.
Yeah.
It's like, quarantine signs are usually shinier than that when they're brand new. But literally, that's the only complaint I have. The only thing that kind of pulled me out of it for a second.
I have one. We'll get to that later.
Ooh. You guys remember reading World War Z?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The soldier storyline, the guy who joined the campaign, going across country and clearing it out, and the different people they ran into, the last man on Earth versus the soldier of fortune types. How are we classifying Bill as far as that goes? Is he more last man on Earth or more soldier of fortune?
Well, he's definitely not a mercenary.
Yeah.
So I would feel like a soldier of fortune is like, I'm going to take your shit. Bill is definitely a stay in his place, protect his land kind of character. And, he won't overtly hurt you if you're not trying to hurt him, but he's going to protect what he considers his, right?
Yeah, I agree.
The traps that he made were pretty ingenious, too. The head-level tripwire trap with just one shot to the head. I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, I also, bumped on all of the old-school monitors, like those gigantic monitors, because they're not going to get any more different types of monitors. So, every monitor and every computer has got the huge monitors that we used to have.
Yep.
And they will last, so that's probably good for him.
And the next scene is we get another big jump to 2007. And this is where Bill has one of his pitfalls basically go off. The Atari game. And
would you say that Frank falls for Bill?
Oh, yeah. Actually, Frank is really curious in this particular scene. I think he woos Bill on purpose, and I think he's telling the truth that he wouldn't necessarily do it for anyone per se. But anyway, I kind of feel like at the beginning he's not as invested as he makes it out to seem with Bill, and then he learns to love Bill, of course. Anyway, he finds Frank in a pit, and Bill basically calls out to Frank and is like, "Are you armed?" And then he takes like a really long time to answer and then says no, and you're like, Bill and the audience is like, why did you do
it's such a great long pause.
No.
Hello? No? Like, and I love that Bill like calls him on it, like, why did you take so long to respond?
And he had a good answer.
I don't know, man. I'm in a hole. Yeah.
And that scene's kind of fun because you immediately get a feel for who Frank is and who Bill is. Bill shows up with this like bandolier of grenades and his shotgun and his scanner, and Frank's literally got nothing on him. Like, he doesn't even have a backpack, the hero of a post-apocalyptic universe.
He didn't have a backpack.
And he doesn't have anything. Yeah, he doesn't have anything, Paul. He's just like, maybe he's been stalking Bill for days, and he's like, okay, finally, I'm gonna like get in there. I can tell he's gay from a mile away.
And I'm gonna find the least dangerous trap, and I'm gonna just get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah, he's very lucky he didn't walk past one of those shotgun
or the other traps that we'll talk about in
yeah.
the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that you've hit on the core of it. I love Frank, but I think he's wily. I think he's much smarter than he lets on.
Oh, yeah, that was all a ruse. Like, every bit of it. He could tell that Bill was super wary, and he uses every skill he has to seem like he is completely unassuming. Like, I'm not a bad guy. Like, I'm not gonna hurt you. Like, every manipulative strategy he has in his book he's using to not get killed, basically.
Yeah. He humanized himself by saying, hey, audience, my name's Frank.
And it's the first time you learn Bill's name in the episode.
Yeah, after dinner and everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it has to be dinner because Arby's doesn't serve free lunch.
Yeah.
That was so good.
That was such a good line. So Bill does take Frank back to the house, and every scene in this house, I'm just like, all of my gay-loving radar is going off. I'm just like, ugh, Bill's listening to Frank shower.
Yeah.
Everything about Nick Offerman is amazing, but he has the most soulful fucking eyeballs of any human being I have ever seen in my life, and he's like already starting with shooting off his baby blues at Frank. I already love you. Like, I can like see it in his face.
And his posture. I think you go into that.
Yeah. Yeah, like at the dinner, you can tell he's uncomfortable, but he's super nervous. Like, he's already attracted to Frank. Like, you can see it in just how he's uncomfortable with the whole situation in general.
And it's nice that they didn't give us scenes of Bill beforehand being lonely, feeling lonely, like dwelling on it. And it's like, no, it's been 3 years. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, of course he's lonely. We don't need to tell you that. He's going to show us that, so.
Yeah, and he's also seemed actually kind of content with his aloneness. You do learn the next scene is they eat dinner together. It's like this amazing meal that Frank hasn't had in a long time. Bill plates the dinner for Frank, brings out this amazing bottle of wine, serves the proper wine for the meal that they're having. That's cueing Frank into all of the things that, oh, maybe this guy is gay, you know? Yeah. Frank, again, can tell Bill's getting ready to try to kick him out of the house. He's got the hunched shoulders. He's really uncomfortable. And he just sort of takes control of that situation after he finishes the meal. He's like, oh, well, before I leave, let me go over to this piano.
Ancient 1940s piano.
Yeah. And he's like, what kind of music do you have here? Oh, this is obviously your mother's. So it's interesting that they're showing that Frank's kind of intuitive about people, and he can already figure out what Bill would like and maybe not like based off of what he's seen in the house. And then he starts playing another song, the heartbreaking song of the episode, the Lena Ronstadt song, Long, Long Time.
Which I had never heard before.
Really? My mom loved Linda Ronstadt. She played it all the time.
Yeah, I knew Linda Ronstadt. I'd never heard that song, though.
I only remember choruses of songs, but I was able to sing along to the chorus, like at the end when they play it again. Frank plays it very badly. Like, it's like, this is a Linda Ronstadt song? Like, this doesn't, I mean, even Bill doesn't quite get the tone of the song great, but he definitely gets it better.
Why do you think Bill stopped him? Like, he shut him down very forcefully and emotionally, and then he started playing it.
I got the impression that it was a song important to Bill from a previous relationship, that he'd gotten his heart broken. Why he starts playing it after, that kind of challenged that assumption for me, but
I got the feeling that Bill is a very checklist kind of person and also wants everything to be just right. And the fact that Frank was playing it so poorly actually just made him really upset.
Okay.
This is a song that I have been practicing thousands of hours on my own, and you're butchering it. Just step aside. Let me show you how it's done. Like, because you kind of see that later too. Like, this is the way you play the song. This is the way that we survive. This is the way we do this. And Frank's like, no, we need to step out of this. We can play it wacky. Like, who cares? You know, so that's how I felt. And then he ends up playing it very soulfully, of course. Frank actually starts crying, and I'm not sure if that's an affectation or not. I kind of feel like, are you crying on purpose? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I teared up.
yeah, I was going to say, it felt genuine to me.
My answer to that is that Frank is absolutely a dom, and he was just putting on his dom behavior. Go take a shower.
Yes, he definitely is a dom, and he's used to bossing people around. But then I'm willing to just ignore that expression for the rest of it, because two sexy bears make love and give me heart palpitations.
You know that chest hair gets all tangled together.
Yeah.
Velcro.
Yep, exactly.
So I do have a clip of Paul and I responding to that scene.
I wonder if he's even had sex with another man. Do you think he has?
I think not.
I
The
don't
way
think
he's
so.
acting
Yeah, he's acting like a virgin.
answered your question.
Aww.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at his eyes.
Marcy's so happy right now.
Look at how cute he is. One lucky son of a bitch.
This apocalypse went great for him.
Yeah, he's basically got his own compound, and then the one man that he meets is going to turn into his lover.
And also give him the best sex he's ever had.
I definitely enjoyed that scene. I'm glad, like, again, Nick Offerman with the eyes. Like, he looks so innocent in the scene where he makes love with a man for the first time. And it's just, like, so adorable. And Frank does actually address, I think, the expression that I saw, which is, like, I just want you to know that I wouldn't have sex with just anyone. They address it so it doesn't feel like Frank's basically a prostitute.
And for anybody out there like, man, Nick Offerman's really, like, it's a brave acting choice, you know, doing this episode, doing this show. Back in Deadwood, episode 1, Nick Offerman's first shot was full frontal nudity holding his penis on screen.
Wow.
Shouting about how happy he was with the sex he just had with a prostitute. Then he gets blown away by Wild Bill Hickok. So Nick Offerman can pretty much play any role.
Amazing.
He's not your typical leading man nowadays. He's just owns his bareness. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, he's furry. He's like a big dude. He likes being outdoors and he likes woodworking. Like, that's who he is, but he's also funny and adorable and vulnerable.
A good
and,
person.
You know, all those things. Basically, he's John.
Right, so we're coming to the end, like, the sex scene, there's a transition, it's going to go into the future. I just need to point out that on day 1, Frank has asked for 3 things from Bill. He implied asking for food by saying, I'm really hungry, I haven't eaten in 2 days. He says, can I have 5 more minutes when he's in the shower? And then, like, at the sex part, after the good sex, he says, I'm going to stay for a few more days, is that okay? So, now fast forward into the future, their first argument, or their first big argument, Frank busts out of the house and he's yelling at Bill, and he says at one point, when have I asked you for anything? Yeah,
he's a good manipulator.
He is.
Hey, I need to drop off, you guys. Enjoy talking about the sweet, sweet love story. You know, I'd love to stay and talk about that. I love me a good romance, but
Yep.
Gotta go meet some friends.
All right.
Take care, John.
All right.
See you later.
Bye.
And then there were 2. So yeah, they're having this argument, and the whole point of the argument, we find out, is that Frank wants to make friends. He wants to restore the town so that they can have visitors. He's met a nice lady on the radio that he wants to talk to, and that's going to be the Tess and Joel connection. But I have to say, during this argument, Frank calls Bill a prepper and says that he has these crazy beliefs, like that the government's fascist. And Bill's response is the most admirably correct.
Well, they are.
So yeah, at that point, I'm on Bill's side.
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit of a weird request. I want to fix up these weird stores in the town. Like, I don't see the reason of that either, unless you're like bringing people to the stores and then they get to shop there. I get it. Like, you want to make your place nice. You want to make it look good. It is a small request. I'm guessing there's not a lot to do in your town, so why not fix up a couple of stores? And that is something that I felt like was kind of weird about this story, is that they never do have anybody come and live with them.
That's true.
Maybe that is the safest way to be. Maybe they were content to be alone. Well, they obviously were.
Well, Bill was very content, and Frank wanted a little bit of spice. And so the argument ends with Frank revealing that he's actually been talking on the radio with Tess, which that probably started a whole nother argument, the way Bill went, "What?"
Yeah, he was like enraged. I mean, I would be really upset too, because it would be really hard. Like, if you told the location of your secret base to a rando on the radio, you could bring a whole horde of people down.
Yeah,
on
who knows? If he didn't talk to Tess, it could have been the Raiders that come next week. You know, it's operational security failure there.
I mean, they did get lucky because Tess and Joel are basically them, just in heterosexual form.
Even with the unspokenness of the relationship.
Yeah, exactly. They have a little tea party. Frank actually does invite Tess and Joel up. And this is a really hysterical and fun scene. Bill is like holding a gun cocked literally on the table, pointed at Joel. And Joel is not fazed at all. But Frank keeps telling him to put it away. And he finally like uncocks it and kind of puts it down. And then he calls Bill a paranoid schizophrenic. But then Bill says, "Well, I'm not schizophrenic, but he is paranoid." So I thought that was like a really funny joke.
That's good. And he also did "so you're a prepper, right?" And he's like, "No, a survivalist."
Yeah, we get a lot of verses kind of going on in this scene. But like Tess and Frank are definitely the diplomats. I talked about Tess a lot in the last 2 episodes. I can see how her and Frank would get along really well. And then Joel and Bill don't get along with anybody except the one person that they care about. So it's perfectly obvious that they're just the perfect
parallels.
Yep, they pair up very well.
And then this is also the part foreshadowing about the lack of how you can be long-term prepared, Joel's contractor powers.
I think that was actually John said something about that, where Bill definitely prepared for the short term, but when Joel shows up, he was established earlier in the very first episode that he's kind of like a contractor or somebody who works in construction. He convinces Bill to agree to be friends to a degree so that they can get the resources that they need to protect their compound. And in the meantime, Frank and Tess are basically like tittering like girlfriends, and he takes her to the boutique, obviously, that he's gotten put back together, and this is where she gets her pink shirt.
That's right. And so now the pink conspiracy expands to include Frank being one of the givers of it.
The people who shine love into the world wear like pinkish red colors. The other people do not. Or they get splashes of it, but it's not as apparent, I guess.
It's not so fundamental to their character. So there's 2 points that are also crucial in this scene. This is the scene where the music code is introduced. Frank tells Tess, this is how we're going to do that. And it was kind of in the background, a little quiet. So I don't know if everyone would notice that. Also, this is an example of Frank telling Bill instead of asking, because Tess said, if this partnership works out, and Frank says, we are working together. We are. And that "we are" was to Bill. Like, you have to come along with me on this, buddy.
Because it would be stifling to have the only person that you spend time with, as much as you love them, be one single person.
So then it fast forwards a couple of years. It's now 2013. Bill has taken Joel's advice about beefing up the fence security. So we can assume that the 10 rolls of fence has been strung out. There's also a bunch of cars along the fence to make it even beefier. And strawberries. Frank takes one of Bill's guns and gives it to Tess in exchange for some seeds, plants the seeds in secret so Bill doesn't see them until he reveals them as a surprise, which is a very cute surprise, but Bill was not happy about losing a gun.
I think this is a good scene, like, because we saw them fall in love, then we saw them kind of arguing, and now the strawberries is sort of like a sweet reconciliation, which is, I've done this thing for you, it's sweet. Again, we see the wonder of they haven't tasted a fresh berry in who knows how long, and strawberries are super delicious when they're fresh like that. Like, I had some fresh strawberries this last summer because I had planted some, and it's just miles away from the tasteless strawberries compared to the ones that I had that were fresh. And it's just like, it's a religious experience sometimes when you eat something that's that tasty, you know? And you haven't had anything like that in a long time.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point that each one of these scenes, it's a snapshot in the life of this couple, but it's also, it's the whole spread of a relationship. It's not always just happiness. Sometimes there's anger. There's a lot of care in every moment. You know, the fact that Frank is making Bill run because Bill was starting to get a little older, you know, helping keep him in shape, that's care. The strawberries is care in a different way.
And I'm like, it's like they're eating a penis.
Oh
no,
my God.
Just kidding.
Yes, that's exactly what it's about. The next scene is the dark of night. Joel's warning about raiders comes true. A bunch of people come. They're not particularly clever because they seem to fall into Bill's fire traps.
And like just throw themselves at the electric fence. But we do have a clip from that as well where Bill is fighting off all the raiders.
Whoa!
The best part of waking up
Is blowtorches in your face. Whoa. He's probably locked him in the room, I bet.
Where the fuck is Bill? He better be already out there.
He's shooting him. Yeah, he's already out there. He's wasting him.
Yeah.
Why hasn't this guy figured out how to fight? That should have been part of their training over the last 10.5 years.
You'd think.
It is an interesting scene just because Bill doesn't even wake up Frank, first of all. They're sleeping in the same bed, so he must have, maybe Bill just sits up and like watches the screens at night when Frank's sleeping. That I would not put it past him to do that to protect him.
Or getting up and just doing rounds every once in a while.
So maybe he just didn't even have a chance to tell him it was happening before it was happening. I do think you make a good point about, like, you can go ahead and say
so this is the moment that broke me, John. This is the moment where I lost all immersion just for a moment. Bill is standing in the middle of the street, no cover at all, with his hunting rifle shooting at these raiders. Now, we don't know how many there are. It definitely seems like there's more than 10. Why is he standing out there in the streets like an idiot?
It was ridiculous. I do remember being like, why is he in the middle of the street? What is happening? Like, obviously there's 5 people. He's basically a target right there.
I had to make up some stupid excuse in my brain to make it go away. Like, he had to go between locations or something. Like, the story reason makes sense, right? We needed Bill to get hurt because we needed that really heart-wrenching, is he going to die moment? And like, is this going to affect him forever? So at this point, clearly enough of the raiders have been killed that they're no longer a part of the concern, because Frank just pulls Bill onto their dining room table and starts examining him, for lack of better words. And Bill is realizing, hey, this could be it for me. I better make sure that Frank's taken care of. So he starts telling Frank, contact Joel. He'll take care of you. I have keys here. All these other facts that you need to know to continue on living here without me. And Frank wasn't hearing any of it.
That scene is also like a really like, oh moment, because even though Bill says he's not friends with Joel, he obviously trusts Joel to protect people. In that moment, you're reminded that Joel is a person that certain people can trust.
Yeah, even if you don't like him. And so I don't know if you picked up on this, Marcy, but there's Bill possibly dying, fade to black. Then the next scene, there's someone in a wheelchair and you can't quite make out who it is. Did you think that they were trying to imply that that was Bill?
My guess is that yes, I probably thought it was going to be Bill, and then it turned out to be Frank.
Yep. Big upset. We were talking about Bill being the older one and needing more health stuff to stay in shape, and yep, Frank's the one who's now not doing so hot.
Frank's on the porch painting a kind of abstract painting of Bill, and it's just like a really sweet moment. They are both obviously quite a bit older, and a good job with the old man makeup. I feel like it can make or break a show, that old person makeup. And shout out again to my green shirt crew. We talked a lot about how shitty Star Trek The Next Generation old person makeup was, but they did an amazing job in this episode at aging Frank and Bill. I'm wondering if some of that was CGI. I'm guessing it was, but it didn't look like it was. It looked like it was all practical effects. But they really do a great job of just showing the beauty of sort of growing old together. It was a very quickish, simple scene, but Bill comes up to Frank and then waters the flowers. And you can tell that Bill is still keeping the town nice, even though Frank can no longer help him to do those things. That's where Bill shows that he's paying attention to things. That's how he's showing his love, by watering the flowers, by keeping the boutique ready, by doing all those things that Frank liked to do but can't anymore.
Yeah, so he really internalized the lesson from that argument.
They go on to kind of just show the day in the life for them. They go to bed, and as an occupational therapist who does transferring of people all day long from one surface to another, I was watching for Nick Offerman's technique, and it was a decent technique. I generally don't use like the bear hug. Bear hug. It was pretty good. I feel like Frank did a fairly decent representation of a person with a stroke.
I don't have a lot to say about this whole scene. I was so invested in it. There was almost no dialogue. It was just watching them master level at their relationship, just being with each other, doing the things that they do for and with each other, looking not longingly, but like with satisfaction at the other person. Yeah, I did it. Life. Yeah, rules.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't a lot to say. I think that's the beauty of this whole section, I guess, where Frank tells Bill, again, tells him what's going to happen, doesn't take no for an answer, that he wants to die. And Bill is obviously doesn't want that to happen. Frank's like, this is what's going to happen. And he gives him a laundry list. And I have the laundry list for us to listen to.
Just give me one more good day. Starting now, make me some toast. Then take me to the boutique where I'll pick outfits for us. You'll wear what I ask. We'll get married. And you cook a delicious dinner. Then you will crush all of these up, put them in my wine. I will drink it. Then you will take me by my hand, bring me to our bed, and I will fall asleep in your arms.
Okay, so I am very conflicted by how he did that, because it is obvious that Frank has been thinking about his last day for a while now, and the way Bill's reacting, I don't think he's been talking to Bill about it.
I have a couple friends that are going through breakups and stuff, And it seems like often the person who decides that they're going to break up, and this is like a very final breakup, I'm going to die, is that person has been thinking about it for up to a year even maybe. And they've thought about it for so long, they've convinced themselves that this is it. I'm not taking no for an answer anymore. And they surprise their significant other with this information, and the person is completely shocked, obviously, and doesn't even have time to think about it before they have to then, their whole life has to change, right?
Yeah.
I understand why he did it that way, though, because if he had had long conversations about will I or won't I, he probably would have been convinced by Bill to not do it. And I'm still not convinced that this was the right. Bill could still transfer him easily. It wasn't really a hardship yet.
Right. If Bill was struggling with the
it didn't
transfer, I could see maybe that's a bit different.
Right, or, if it looked like Bill was starting to resent having to take care of him or something. And I obviously can understand the feeling of not wanting to be a burden. There's something to be said about being allowed to choose the way that you die.
Go with grace.
So I kind of had a question for us about Frank gives his laundry list of what his perfect day would be. So, Paul, what would be your perfect day? It doesn't have to be like you die at the end of it, but...
Well, it does say what would be your perfect last day, so I was thinking that it would be.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I did put what was your perfect last day.
Yeah,
that makes it sadder.
It does, but, you got to make it a good day. I think that it would have to involve, all of my closest friends would have to be there, so it'd probably be some kind of a party. Maybe not like a lawn games party, more of a talking about the good old days and forming any lasting memories that anyone else who might be there could remember me by. That would be a big part of it. I'd probably eat some just food that I never eat because it's not good for you too. I would eat a whole tub of ice cream for sure.
Wow, yours is the exact opposite of mine. I was I would read quietly, on the grass with my dogs, pet my dogs, be outside somewhere where it's breezy because I love the wind, just enjoy some peacefulness, eat tacos for every meal.
Tacos, definitely that would be on my last day as well.
Obviously, spend time in quiet contemplation with Andrew, maybe talking about the good old days, but just enjoying each other's company, laying together, snuggling together, peaceful, kind of I guess their day was, where you're not expected to be on or do anything, you're just being together.
Now I'm trying to think of ways to be more opposite of you. It'd have to be televised, and there'd have to be cheerleaders just chanting my name. No, I did want to say that after Frank portrays how he wants the day to go and Bill starts crying, Frank asks him if he loves him, and Bill says he does, and then Frank says, "Love me the way I want you to." And I was like, so dumb. And I do believe that the very last thing he says is "take me to bed."
Yeah, he's super bossy. Nick Offerman plays a perfect sub. He doesn't really fight it very much. He's just cries a little bit and he's yeah, okay. But I guess his way of fighting it is well, I guess we're just gonna die together.
Because what else is he gonna protect?
I do have one more clip of us reacting to this scene.
It's kind of interesting to me that they never did take anybody in.
Yep, it's just them and that's it. Oh.
God. I'm crying already. Don't do it. Don't do it, Bill. But I guess there's something to be said about dying with dignity instead of just wasting away.
Yeah.
Like the woman with her biscuits being shoved down her throat. I'll never forgive that husband.
Aww.
Aww. Notice they're sitting next to each other instead of across from each other?
Yep. Same one, I imagine. Served slightly differently. He's like, did you put it in?
Oh, here's the death line.
They did a good job just like not saying a word for that whole bit.
Mm-hmm. I would want to die with him. What's the point
It'd be tempting, yeah.
the other person living?
Well, we answer our own question like 2 seconds later of Bill does decide to die with him.
We called that one. I wanted to point out too that last meal together, it was sort of a perfect last date for them because it was the first date, but better because they knew each other, they were comfortable with each other. Bill even remembers to turn the plate so that the meat's in the closest to Frank, which is what Frank did to his own plate in the beginning, in the first time they ate together. They're just so thoughtful of the whole experience.
Yeah, I think it's a bittersweet story, but it's not like they die in a violent way either, which I think is unique for a post-apocalyptic movie or show. Somebody usually always dies by getting shot in the head or smashed with a baseball bat or, I don't know, shooting themselves. But here it's a very peaceful, they choose it. They've lived a long life, surprisingly, and just decided they didn't want to die alone, so they're going to die together. And I felt like it was a very unique scene for this type of show.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully done. And if I were to live in an apocalypse, that would be the arc I want for myself.
Yeah, the very last scene is Bill taking Frank to the bedroom, and they close the door. And again, as an occupational therapist, I was like, at the beginning of the episode, they were upstairs in the bedroom, and now they're downstairs because Frank's in a wheelchair and they can't get upstairs. And my guess is they probably haven't been upstairs in a really long time. And it's just for me kind of like a nice little nod that Bill continues to do things to take care of Frank. And I think Frank appreciates them, but I feel like Bill is way more thoughtful than Frank gives him credit for, I guess.
Yeah, he's an extremely thoughtful guy. He's just quiet about it. Very much like Joel.
Yes.
So, fades out, and then we're back to Joel and Ellie, and they're right up at the compound. Joel knows the key to get past the electric fence. I think a testament to how close to friendship they are, giving someone the security codes like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then, right, that was your observation, that Joel noticed the flowers.
Yeah, so the scene where we first learn that Frank is in the wheelchair, you see Bill watering this pot of flowers that's a bunch of yellow daisies. And when Joel kind of walks up to the house, he looks over and sees that that pot of flowers is all dried up and dead, and then he pulls his gun out. So I feel like Joel has already noticed that things aren't right, that it's not being taken care of, and that's kind of a nod again to the fact that Bill was taking care of things for Frank, you know, and Joel probably knew about that and then noticed that it wasn't happening anymore. Something must be wrong with Bill and Frank.
Yep. And Joel is quick to pull out his gun when it comes to that. Joel enters the house, Ellie behind him, and he knows there's some danger, so he tells her to wait, and she wonders what to do if there's a problem, and he just says, scream. Because Bill would fuck her up if she was just in his house. Like, he would have a gun on her, and she would need to get Joel. And yeah, the door is locked because Joel can't enter the bedroom to see what's going on with Bill and Frank. So Ellie finds the note.
Note is kind of a funny part of it, too, because I just like that it's addressed to whomever, but probably Joel. And it's so good that he just knows that it's going to be Joel. I think it's funny that he never even had a relationship with Tess either.
True.
Like, you would think that they would become like couples friends, but no, it was just Bill and Joel and Tess and Frank. And Tess and Frank probably always just like hung out drinking wine, like at the boutique, like dressing up in fancy dresses. There would be like a fancy dress montage, and Bill and Joel would be like cleaning guns and watching the CCTVs blow up zombies. Like, that would be their idea of fun. Drinking scotch and not saying a single fucking word.
That's so Ron Swanson. It's like that. My best friend, we've never said a word to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
I still don't remember his name. And so the note, Ellie was reading it out loud to Joel, and then the note mentions Tess. Do what you can to protect Tess, something along those lines. That had to stop that conversation.
Again, this is another reminder to Joel that he might be a protector, but he's a bad one because every person that he's loved, that he's tried to protect, has died. I feel like he could go either way, right? Obviously, in this story, he goes the right way, but the other way would be like,
up.
I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore because it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you can tell already that he's taking on that role for Ellie based off of his little moments of care throughout the beginning of the episode.
Mm-hmm. And so also in the note, Bill leaves everything that he has to whomever, but probably Joel. Joel makes use of that. He finds the truck that was Bill's truck from the beginning of the episode, this 20-something-year-old beast of a vehicle, and Joel has to charge some batteries. And so that brings us to Paul's pathology.
Paul's pathology.
Yeah.
My favorite section.
So earlier on in Bill's bunker, they do a establishing shot, something like that, and there's just gallons of sulfuric acid labeled. And the episode has shown that sulfuric acid is useful for batteries. But what else is sulfuric acid good for? Because he has a lot of it. And to people who don't know, it is commonly used these days in all kinds of things. It's actually an indicator for how industrialized a nation is how much sulfuric acid they produce. And it's useful for fertilizers. It's in your drain cleaner. It's used for paints, like dyes and coloring of things. It's used in metalwork, cleaning the metal so that you can solder it properly and whatnot. But the two things that I want to talk about are soap and paper. Paper.
Paper for the woman. Okay.
That's some Waterworld in your Last of Us. First, I'll go with soap. When you mix a base and an acid, what's left over in the chemist world is called a salt. So soap is the salt that you get when you mix oils and fats with lye, and then the sulfuric acid would be the other component. Boom, now you have soap. And then the other fun thing about sulfuric acid is if you put plant matter into it, you can create paper. You can create the flash paper that magicians use that disappears.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was actually one of the first plastics was made from sulfuric acid and plant matter. And the whole reason that they came up with plastic is because they were worried that ivory was getting scarce. It wasn't at the time.
Oh my God.
But at the time, we're talking 1860s or so, billiard balls were made of ivory, and there's this transition that happens where they would use this first attempt at plastic that is still explosive for billiards. And so imagine you're in a freaking Colorado, saloon, someone hits a billiard ball at just the right angle into another one. Boom, sounds like someone just shot someone, and now everybody's pointing their guns and they don't know what.
Or they literally explode the whole room.
They're not that explosive. They're just a really loud pop.
Oh. I see. Well, I feel like for our post-apocalyptic world, Paul and Marcy would be like, we can make paper out of sulfuric acid. We got to make more books, put in our environmentally controlled library.
And we will never trade paper for a woman or a child.
No, that's terrible. That's a horrible thing to do.
Which was...
But it is a hilarious
scene
from that movie. When you say it like that, obviously, yes, we need sulfuric acid, gallons and gallons of it. Who would think to do that unless you were a survivalist?
Not some filthy prepper. At this point, the batteries are charged. They're ready to go. Joel sets down the law that will be broken almost immediately. Joel's 3 rules.
You don't bring up Tess ever. Matter of fact, we can just keep our histories to ourselves. You're such a fucking liar,
Yeah,
Joel.
I'm going to figure out exactly how many minutes until you've made that a lie. The next one was, you don't tell anyone about your condition. Yeah, she's going to break that next episode, I think.
Yeah. You'll do what I say when I say it. Ellie does listen to Joel when he's serious about stuff.
It's true. Just not when he tells her gun stuff, because we sort of didn't even go about it. When the Raiders attacked, Frank pulls out a gun from a stash, and Ellie, who snoops around the house for 5 minutes, finds that stash, takes that gun. She doesn't do what he says when it comes to guns.
There's also a scene in there where she messes with a grandfather clock.
Breaks it immediately.
And breaks it. I'm wondering if that's kind of a subtle nod to Joel's broken watch. Another kid breaking a timepiece. I don't know.
I hadn't thought of it, but
I'm
maybe.
Grasping at straws here. But then Ellie's got a gun. Ellie's got a gun. Now I have the song that we're going to play anytime Ellie pulls out the gun.
The battery's charged. They've got all the supplies they figure that they're going to need for this long trip towards Wyoming or wherever they, at the moment, think they're going.
And again, we get another scene of Ellie with the wonderment of being in a car where she calls it a spaceship. And she's never driven in a car. She's never actually been in one where it moves.
Right. They're just walls.
It's just like amazing. Exactly. It's just amazing to think of a person who has not experienced that. So.
And as snoopy as she is, she finds a cassette and they plug it in, and lo and behold, it's
Linda Ronstadt.
Long time. Oh, and then that was a moment where Joel sort of opened up a little as well, because he didn't want the music at first, but when it started playing, he's like, no, this is actually good.
Yeah, he's loosening up a little bit, and they do a pullback as they're driving away into Bill and Frank's room, and kind of a pencil drawing of Bill's face, probably done by Frank quite a while ago. I think one of the cool things that they did at the end here is that they never show you Frank and Bill's dead body. I definitely had an expectation for that. The moment they went into that room, I thought we were going to see their bodies. And I thought it was really great that they didn't show you that. Because you could be left with the image of them alive and loving each other.
Yeah, I was very much expecting it as well, and pleasantly surprised.
I'm trying to think of what my favorite moments from the episode were. I can't really pick an exact moment, but I love the fact that they chose to do Bill and Frank's story. Their choice of changing the ending of Bill's story, because in the game he lives and you learn about Frank through experiencing, mementos and things in the house as the characters that you're playing. And I feel like this was a much better choice to learn about them in this really compelling story.
100%. And I did go back and watch some of the game footage from that. There is a scene where they go into Frank's house because Frank and Bill had been split up, and Frank has hanged himself, and Bill cuts the rope and just is visibly angry at Frank, but in a way where you can tell that he's angry for a lot of reasons, but one of them is genuine love and just being pissed off that Frank's dead. So I think the game was good, but I think this whole episode was way better than anything that they did in the game.
Hearing the end of Frank, as you had just described it, it was definitely more horrific. They're doing a good job in showing us that everything about this post-apocalypse doesn't have to be horrible.
There's pockets of good there.
Right. And I think that was the whole point of Bill's letter, is that find that one thing that's important to you that you love and protect it. Because I hated everything until I met Frank. And I think that's what this whole episode is about. It's about telling us what Joel's journey is going to be.
And you have to have a reason to keep fighting in a world like that. And there's things in the world worth protecting. And God help any motherfuckers that stand in our way.
That's good. That's a good line to end on, I think. Do you have anything else you want to add? I think we went over a lot of stuff in this episode, but still probably missed
a bunch.
Things.
But no, I'm happy with what we've said.
So I wanted to thank John again for joining us for a portion of this episode. I think he definitely adds a lot of flavor when he comes in to chat with us, and also he's been such a great help to me in getting this podcast started. So thank you so much, John. And thank you, people who are listening. We always appreciate it if you like and subscribe to any of our podcast sites like Apple or Spotify, any of those places. Give us a like. If you want to get in touch, you can contact us at idleridepodcasts@gmail.com, at Idle Ride Podcast on Twitter and at Idle Ride Podcast on Instagram. I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you again for episode 4.
See ya.
Bye.